excited about this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that our student athletes are going to get. The opportunity to travel to Cuba and experience their culture and their, the educational opportunity and learn their history through the vehicle baseball is something that we're really excited about. And I've said this a bunch, and I truly mean it. To me, it's one of those hard and fast examples of what makes Penn State special. And if it wasn't for Penn State, if it wasn't for Dr. Nichols and Kate Manny and our educational agreement with the Marti Center, this wouldn't be an opportunity for our guys. So it's another example of the unbelievable educational opportunities that Penn State provides our student athletes. I'd always wanted to take a team on an international trip, and I was actually in a meeting with some fundraisers about back in February, and thinking about starting a fundraising group, and they said, this is a good idea. What would you want to use that money for? And I said, well, I'd like to use it kind of as a discretionary fund if we want to do something down in the locker room, a new graphic or a piece of equipment. I said, and if it ever grows to what I think it can grow to, you're allowed to take an international trip once every 4 years, and I'd love to take our team on an international trip. And Kirk Deal, who works for the Varsity S and the Nittany Lion Club, said, well, what about Cuba? And I thought he was kidding. And I looked at him, I was like, yeah, right, and kind of kept talking. He said, no. He said, Dr. Nichols, who he had as a professor, has been taking groups down there for years. And he said, why don't I put the two of you in touch? And it was literally that conversation that then an email followed up with Dr. Nichols, and then we sat down, and that's kind of how it got it started. And we actually started having these conversations, and pretty much it felt like we could pull this off before the Obama administration ever made any kind of announcements about the new relations with Cuba. Again, I kind of go back to the fact that with the educational agreement, with the Marti Center, with the groups from Cuba that have traveled down there before. Russ Rose took a team down there once before, and professors and students have gone down there. So I can't really speak to the ease of it. What I can tell you is that I do think, based on what I'm hearing from the people that are helping us from the Marti Center, Dr. Nichols, and the rest of the people that have done this before, is that the itinerary that we're getting is something they've never seen before, and they're very excited about it. Our kids are going to get to experience. Well, the very first itinerary I got, it had us playing, I think, 2 or 3 games against the University of Havana, 2 games against them, and then I think a game against their a youth national team, and that was it. And then the itinerary changed about a week later, and we were told that we were going to play the series national teams, and we were going to play 2 games against the Industriales, which is, their version of the Yankees. And I was ecstatic. I would have been ecstatic playing the schedule we had. And I've said this numerous times. I'm excited about the baseball part of it. I really am. I'm excited about the fact that we're going to play competition like that. But if we had been told that we're going to take this trip and we were going to play 1 game down there, 1 practice, and it would have been against whoever, I would have been fine with that. Again, I'm excited about the baseball part of it, and that is definitely the vehicle that's taking us down there. But it's honestly the very last thing that's the most important in this trip. But it's pretty cool to say you're going to get to play against that kind of competition, the type of league that guys like Puig and Chapman and all those guys, that's either they played in it or they were going to play in it before they left. So that's pretty cool. Well, I've been fortunate. I've coached with USA Baseball a couple times. I was an assistant on the 07 and 09 college national team. And in 07, we lost in the gold medal game in Rio de Janeiro in the Pan Am Games to Cuba. And, in fact, the starting pitcher in that game was Aroldis Chapman. And he's done okay for himself since that game. I will say that he was effectively wild in that game at 97, 98, 99. And then I was fortunate enough to be the head coach on the USA national team for the 18 and under team in 2013, and the World Championships were in Taichung. and we played Cuba, and actually we came back and beat them, and we won the gold medal there. And so I've competed against them twice, and it's one of those things that I always wanted to do, to be honest with you. When I understood what USA Baseball was, and I remember 1984 being, a kid in Sacramento, California, buying boxes of baseball cards and opening them up, and there's, Barry Larkin and Mark McGuire and all these guys, Oda B. McDowell, that were USA Baseball guys. They were USA. They had the first time ever they had printed USA Baseball cards, and I thought, this is unbelievable. You can represent your country, playing baseball. And I was 10 years old when we beat the Russians in 1980 for hockey. So the thought of playing for your country and representing your country through baseball, something I always wanted to do. And then when you realize the history of sport around the world, and baseball being such a big deal to their lives in Cuba. I mean, it's their national sport. It's a big thing of who they are as people, and they're proud of it, and it's a big part of their nation. So it's something that I've always wanted to do. I always wanted to go with USA Baseball down there because I didn't think I'd ever get a chance to do it other than that. So I remember sitting with Dr. Nichols for the first time, and he was asking why we wanted to do this, and I said, number one, I want to take our players there, the educational opportunities, the once-in-a-lifetime cultural experiences, where we are in U.S. history right now, and our relations with Cuba, what they're going to get a chance to see. But then I said, look, I'm also going to tell you I'm 100% selfish in this too. Like, I want to go. And I want to see it myself. And my dad was a U.S. history professor, and I'm a military history buff, so I've always been fascinated by Cuba and been lucky enough to compete against them. So it's kind of, for Rob Cooper, personally, it's kind of the best of everything. I think that anytime you can put your players in a position where they have to be uncomfortable and they have a chance to learn and realize what they can kind of deal with. I mean, it may not sound like it has any kind of impact on the season, but like, we have unbelievable kids in our program, and they want to do well, and they want to they want to play well, and they want to make Penn State proud. And so I think sometimes that pressure of performing well, representing the university well, that can get to them a little bit. And so when you're able to put them in positions where it's stressful, where their routines are going to change, like, there's no Starbucks, there's no McDonald's, there's no Wi-Fi, basically, So just a simple act of having your cell phone, being able to kind of get outside that comfort zone, that translates into life. Being able to see what other people live with on a daily basis. And even though economically it's a whole different world from where we are, they're still very, like, the pride in their country. They're very prideful people, and so I think all that is stuff that our kids can learn and be thankful for what we have, thankful for the opportunities we have, so that when it is a long day out here, they can look back on that and go, you know what, like, we're thankful. Look at this. We go to one of the, we're at one of the most, we're at one of the best universities in the world, getting an unbelievable education, and we get a chance to play baseball and chase our dreams. And I think that's something that can help them as players and help our program. But look, I think originally, the thought of missing a Thanksgiving week with their families, like, look, I'm going to be away from my family too. Like, that's hard. But I think the more that we've educated on them and have them kind of realize what they're getting to do. In my lifetime, you haven't been able to travel down there unless it's been a special opportunity. So this is something that at this point in history, where the Cuban nation, where Cuba is, where we are, where the agreement, what we're trying to get to, I mean, we're going at a really unique time. And so I think that, the more they've talked to their families, the more we've had, kind of educational seminars about, the history of it and the culture of it and what baseball means to them, then I think they're starting to kind of realize that this is big. I kind of joked around a little bit excuse me, with some people, and I was telling them, like, I think the first time I told the players that we were going, they were excited. But I don't know if they really understood what they were excited about, you know, and I don't mean that negatively. I think sometimes, you know, you tell, like, if you told my two boys, you know, hey, we're going to Cuba, they'd think it was like when we went to the Dominican Republic one for a week, you know, and it's not that, you know, and so, so yeah, I do think they're excited. I do think they're starting to really kind of sense that they're getting a chance to do something really unique. The thing is, one thing, the very first, honest to goodness, the very first thing that I would ever consider in doing a trip like this is whether or not I could trust our guys to make a trip like that. And these are great kids. These are great kids that will represent, they always do, represent Penn State in a first-class manner.